everywhere.
Fundraising 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 everywhere.
Right, so hello everyone, I'm Laura Jakes, I'm profoundly deaf. I've been in the sector for 9 years. I'm a proud individual giving and legacy fundraiser. I've worked for various household names. The aim of today is that I want people to go away and think about how they can make the sector accessible for disabled fundraisers. I also want disabled employees to have the courage to make their employers change the ways in how they deliver their meetings, seminars, interviews online. I'm also going to be talking about accessibility from a deaf perspective. There'll be a wide range of speakers today. We have Colin, who has a sight loss, Scott, who has a learning disability and sight loss. We'll have Chloe, who has cerebral palsy, and Julia, who has a stammer. We also have Lucy, who is a BSL user, and Reese, who has autism, and myself. So each of those speakers will be talking about what their needs are from their perspective. I guess you could say this highlights that accessibility isn't one for all. It's about adapting to different needs and how we can do that. As we all know, the pandemic has meant a lot of us working from home. And to me, it highlighted the lack of understanding in organisations and how they can make online meetings accessible for people like myself. While everyone was trying to get to grips with online Skype meetings, Zoom, Microsoft Teams and the like, I was sat there like a lemon, not knowing what was being said at meetings, what actions were being taken. I felt isolated. I felt frustrated and that nobody seemed to know what platforms were available to make the meetings accessible for me. I did some research and I found out that Zoom had a subtitle function called Otter, but this then meant me asking HR to pay for the package to enable me to understand what was being said in meetings. I needed this, but as time went on, I found out I was being made redundant. And obviously this caused me to panic because I knew this now meant having to have job interviews online. I had several interviews with household names and shockingly, none of them were accessible for me. Despite me requesting for accessibility, I had told them of the various platforms that were available and none of them seemed to know which one provided captioning for me. And none of them had paid for this platform. They expected me to pay for them. And the interviews threw up a lot of issues. And it made me realise that I was being disadvantaged. The feedback I was getting, because I wasn't able to do my presentations online, is that I had no clue what questions were being asked. I was trying to lip read everything. I was told I was taking my time to answer questions. The list goes on. But what I'm trying to address here now is for employees, when interviewing deaf candidates like myself online, I would suggest that they provided the questions in advance. Make sure that whenever they're doing an interview, the room is very well lit, like this room today. I can lip read in a well lit room. I don't want direct sunlight in your face. I can't lip read when there's shadows. So I'm trying my best here and it's hard work as enough as it is. And I would like organisations to realise that there are accessible platforms available to allow subtitled captioning. But however, subtitles aren't always fully reliable. there's a lot of guesswork going on there, which is why I would suggest for questions to be sent in advance. And also giving the candidate a break in between the interviews. It's hard work being deaf. I suffer from a lot of fatigue. As I said before, lip reading, it's concentrating a lot. It's hard work. And with regard to presentations, every interview I had online has requested for a presentation, and having to do a presentation, share your screen online, as well as trying to lip read a small tiny box in the corner. It was just messy. So I would suggest that if presentations are an important part of the interview, is for that presentation to be sent by the candidate to the interviewer, to send the presentation to the interviewer. And also, I've noticed as well, it's not just interviews, there's a lot of online seminars and conferences. I'm unable to assess these courses as easily as my peers. Many of the courses and conferences don't offer regular breaks, and they don't seem to offer BSL support either. And again, they don't offer captioning either unless you pre-warn them, which is why I'm calling today for this sector to think about accessibility, making it accessible for all, whether you have a hearing loss, learning disability, sight loss, any kind of disability. We all need to be given the same opportunity as others. We all need to be working together to make sure we're going forwards, not backwards. It's taken me years to feel confident in interviews, and I've lost confidence because of this lack of accessibility, and it's not right. Organisations need to be aware of the different needs of individuals and adapt for them rather than making it one for all. I also want people to have the courage to make sure they are getting a fair shot in interviews, in courses, and in the workplace. We all have the right to gain information in accessible ways, and we all need to be working together to make this happen. I'm sure after listening to the speakers today, at the end of the day, you will realise how much work we have to do. And I hope that you all learn something, and I hope you enjoy listening to the fantastic speakers we have today. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Julia Ammon, and I'm a person who stammers or stutters, and I've worked as a fundraiser for the past 10 years now, which is amazing because it's gone by so fast. I'm originally from Florida, but I've lived in England for almost 15 years now. So as you might notice, my accent is a bit strange. Some people think I sound extremely American, and some people don't think I sound American at all. So I am so happy that everyone has joined us today. And if you just want to pop where you or from into the chat and introduce yourselves, that would be amazing. And today I'm here to talk about accessibility for online recruitment to help people who stammer or stutter. And these tips that I'm going to share can also be applicable to everybody, but also to people with speech language and with other speech language and communication needs. Before I share my top tips, I wanted to tell you all that accessibility has meant to me. So accessibility in recruitment and job interviews has enabled me to be comfortable to share my whole self and to demonstrate that although I do stammer or stutter, I do have pretty good communication skills, and I have a lot of fundraising skills as well, which benefit this sector. So my first top tip is to give more time. By this I mean give candidates enough time to effectively prepare for the interview. As a person who stammers or stutters, it takes me a bit longer to interview prep, because I'm not only thinking about what I want to say, but I'm also thinking about how I want to say it, and that can take a bit of practice. So ideally, having the candidate as much time as possible is going to help them prepare. So I personally like at least 3 to 5 days, but I know that sometimes that isn't always possible. And also, by giving more time, I also mean within the interview slot. So I always try to ask for 15 to 20 minutes extra on a 1 hour interview, because giving extra time helps people who stammer to not feel time pressure and to have enough time to say what they want to, but it also gives the interviewer enough time to take on board what the candidate is saying and to ask any questions. My second top tip is to work on your own communication skills. Communication is a two-way street, as one of my managers always said. So it's really important that listeners also have good communication skills. By this, I mean have positive body language, have a positive facial expression, to try to maintain good eye contact, even if the person who stammers or stutters isn't able to keep that eye contact. In addition to all of those things, I think active listening is always really, really positive. So, nudging, repeating back what has been said, all of those types of things will take it a bit easier, and also make sure that you to try not to interrupt when the person is speaking, and try not to finish what you think they're trying to say, because it probably isn't the right thing, and then the person has to start all over again. So try not to do that. A final tip is focus on what the person is saying and the skills and experience that they have, instead of focusing on how they're speaking.
Hi everyone, my name's Chloe. I work for a disability charity called NM Trust based in Andover in Hampshire, and I'm also a disabled fundraiser as I have a disability myself. I'm here today as I saw a post advertising these talks on Facebook that was looking for either disabled fundraisers or people with a connection to a disability charity, and as I have both, I thought that I would come along and see if I can help in any way. So I've been a fundraiser for about 4.5 years now, and I've had a really positive experience with NM Trust. I absolutely love what I do, and I also think we are incredibly welcoming to people with disabilities, not just because that's what we do as a cause, but also within our fundraising team. So I thought I'd share some of my experiences, in the hope that it might help to encourage other charities to introduce more disabled fundraisers to their organisation where they can. So we are part of the government's Disability Confidence Scheme. This is a scheme run by the government that encourages employers to recruit and retain disabled talent into their organisation. There's currently around 18,000 organisations signed up across the country, and that just doesn't have to be just in charities. It can be in any kind of sector and workplace, but it's still relatively unknown. And as Disability Confident is a huge part of what we do, we often hold events about this with other local employers to us to encourage them to think about joining Disability Confident. And quite a lot of people still don't know about it, and it's often referred to as one of the government's best kept secrets, and all the support that is available from the government to support disabled people into work, which I'll come on to shortly. So if you're not part of that scheme already, I definitely encourage you to have a look at it and possibly think about it. You don't have to be kind of a disability organisation like we are to be part of it. And I also feel that it can kind of benefit your organisation in a lot of different ways. Not only are you kind of encouraging disabled people to come and work for you, you're also kind of making sure you're being diverse and as inclusive as possible. And also it may also attract people looking for a job with a disability to you, because they think, oh yeah, they are kind of committed to supporting people with disabilities. That's something important to me. I'm going to give them a go. I know for me, when I was looking for a job like 4.5 years ago now, that really was important to me, because I, before I kind of became employed with NM Trust, didn't have a very positive experience with searching for a job. And I like to point out that I wasn't in the charity sector at all. But because of that, when I was then searching for jobs, the fact that I knew NM Trust were disability confident, it kind of gave me that confidence to go and approach them. And definitely not why I'm looking to move on at the moment until I'm not. But if that time ever does come, I definitely will. When I am job searching at any point, I kind of look for organisations that are disability confident. And as I'm very happy as a fundraiser and can see this as my career now, I would look for charities who are disability confident. And one of the kind of reasons I do that is because, and I did with my experiences at NM Trust, is because as part of our commitment to being disability confident leaders, which is the highest level on the kind of tier of different commitments you can have, we commit to giving every job applicant who meets the minimum job criteria and discloses a disability in their application and interview. And then, given my previous not so great experiences with trying to find a job beforehand, that really gave me the confidence that I was going to at least be given an interview, because I disclosed the disability and I knew I met the minimum requirements. So that kind of gave me confidence not only in my job searching, but also in the organisation itself. And I also think once you sign up to the Disability Confidence Scheme as well, it can kind of connect you to other organisations who are similar. And as we all know, in fundraising, connections are so important. So not only could it help you build connections in terms of your commitment to being disability confident and making sure you're as diverse and inclusive and accessible as possible, it can also lead to contacts that could help with your fundraising generally. Another thing that can really help disabled people into work and make it more accessible to them is something called the Access to Work scheme, which I was supported on for a short time, and again is one of the government's best kept secrets. Essentially, it's a scheme that can help pay for costs that might be needed to make reasonable adjustments for disabled people in the workplace. I think, again, based on my previous experience with trying to find employment, I use a walking frame because of my disability, and I think some employers can see that and be a bit scared and think, oh, what do we need to do to kind of make it accessible? You know, is it going to be loads of paperwork? It's going to be loads of costs? And actually, that's a myth, because the Access to Work scheme is there to help to pay for any adaptations you might need. In my case, it's something really simple as a suitable chair and a parking space relatively close to our office. So really simple. But other people, it can be a bit different. It could be some software that kind of reads what's on the screen to someone if they're visually impaired, or some software that can put text on the screen if someone's got a hearing impairment, something like that. Or on the complete other end of the scale, it can actually pay for someone to have like a PA to help them for various jobs in their role to ensure they're being as efficient as possible. My advice of all of that would be that if you have kind of employed a disabled fundraiser, maybe for the first time, is don't be afraid to ask them what you could do as an employer to help and to make their job more accessible to them and to enable them to be more efficient. Because don't be scared of offending anyone, just have an open and honest conversation, and the chances are the things you can do to help are really simple, and if they are perhaps a little bit more costly, there is support available. It's just not shouted about. And any kind of things that you might need to do to help a disabled fundraiser could actually be beneficial to your wider team. So just have those conversations, be open and honest, and it can be beneficial to everyone. And then going back a little bit I was also thinking about how a recruitment process could be made more accessible for disabled fundraisers generally. As I said, I've had really positive experiences with my recruitment process for where I work with NM Trust. But I know that that's not the case for everyone with disabilities. So my first thing would really be, if you are really committed to kind of recruiting disabled talent, make sure you state that clearly in your kind of job applications, because as I mentioned earlier, when an organisation does state that, it can help to attract people because they get that confidence in you before they've even had an interview. And also in terms of like job specifications and adverts, are all the requirements really necessary? Like, I think now, especially with the pandemic, it's forced us to think things like, is it always essential that you're in the office? Therefore, is a driving license really essential? You know, sometimes things like that can put people off when actually, when you think about it really carefully, is it needed, or is there a way around it perhaps? Also in application forms, avoid complicated language and like jargon that's perhaps you're used to using in your organisation but a potential employee wouldn't be yet. Because you can, in an application form, you can just get the basic information you need, and you can always expand on that in an interview. And then going on to the interviews, make sure there's an option on your application form to ask, is there anything that we can do to make sure your interview is accessible? There'll be nothing worse than for someone like me who has a physical disability to turn up and discover your interview is up a flight of stairs, for example, with no lift, because everyone knows interviews are, you know, it can be scary, and you don't want something like that to throw you off at the first instance. So just make sure you're being open and honest throughout, and just ask him, because people would rather you ask, or I would anyway. And also, obviously, in like the pandemic, we have had to do things like this, but think about, is there any other forms of interview you could offer? Could you perhaps do kind of a first stage of an interview over Skype or Zoom? Is it necessary to get someone into your office straight away? Technology helps open up so many different opportunities for disabled people, and I think the pandemic in particular has really highlighted this. So, long after this pandemic has hopefully settled down, we can keep some of those positive changes. Oh yeah, and then one other thing in terms of the whole recruitment process, and it's again something that I think we do really well at NM Trust, is once you've got a disabled employee or fundraiser on board with you, ask them what they thought of their kind of onboarding and recruitment process. Ask them what they think you could do better to improve it in the future, because they're going to be experiencing it firsthand. So you can't get much better feedback than that. And then also a big part of kind of fundraising is going to conferences and courses and workshops. I was very lucky last year to be awarded a bursary to go to the Institute of Fundraising convention in London, which was absolutely amazing, and I had a brilliant experience. And this year, the conference also went online, obviously, because of the pandemic. And again, I think these putting more things online, using technology, is really useful to disabled people for a whole bunch of reasons. So what I would say is, can we perhaps in the future have more of a virtual element as well as an in-person event? I know there's pros of having an in-person event, because you can network, you can talk to people face to face, but actually for me, having the conference virtually this year means that I could watch more kind of presentations than I perhaps would in an in-person event, because it's just there on my laptop. I haven't had to worry about transport and making sure that's accessible. I haven't needed to worry about whether the rooms are accessible, because it is all on my laptop. And again, that will be the same for hundreds of other people. So yeah, I think maybe in the future, if we can do more things like this virtually, but also in person, just having a nice mix of both. And then again, another thing that I was asked to kind of think about is how can you provide opportunities for disabled people to climb the career ladder. I think the simple answer to that is you don't need to do anything special, because they're just employees like everyone else. And if you're kind of being open and honest with them throughout, asking them what you can do to help, accessing all the help available to you to ensure they can do their job as best as they can. I don't think anything special needs to happen. Since I've been with NM Trust, I've kind of climbed the ladder a couple of times now, and every time I've been treated just the same way as everyone else, my other colleagues with or without a disability. Treat them on their own merits, and at the end of the day, we're just people too. So to wrap it all up, I guess I think for me, to be a successful fundraiser, you've got to be really passionate about your cause. And disabled fundraisers too can be really passionate, especially if the cause you're fundraising for, much like my own, is very close to your heart. That passion can really help drive things forward for you. I read last year, and it really kind of shocked me actually, and stayed with me ever since, that the Institute of Fundraising did a bit of research, and they found out of 7,000 fundraisers from 400 different charities, only 3% of those fundraisers disclose a disability. That's a really small number, and whilst I'm really proud to be part of that 3%, and I did actually take part in their research, I'm really proud, but I also think that it needs to grow, to help our sector become more diverse. As a sector, we are incredibly diverse if you think about all the different things that we do and help to achieve in the world. So I think introducing more disabled talent is definitely the way to go, especially in light of the events this year. The need for our sector is more important than ever. So introducing that disabled talent, the passion, would be amazing.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rhys Jenkins. I'm 28 years of age. I'm from Swansea, and I work as a community coordinator for an autism charity based in Rhondda Cynon Taf called the Autism Directory. Just wanted to talk about a few tips on what it can be like getting into employment in the right areas, and how the directory have treated me in the context of employment, and I'm hoping that by doing so, I could give employers some tips on how they can treat their autistic employees. And the first thing I'd like to talk about is the importance of autism awareness and training in the workplace. So that's the first thing that I wanted to talk about today. It is vital and essential that employers undertake autism training anyway. But one of the most helpful things that you can do as an employer is learning that autism is not universal. It's not the same. It doesn't affect everybody in completely the same way. It affects everybody differently. It's a spectrum condition, and it's important to know that it's not specific for anybody. One person might be completely affected by autism differently from another. Me, for example, I can find very busy workplaces where there's a lot of sound, quite distracting anyway. For another autistic person, it can be completely different. They might find it overwhelming and incredibly tough to work in. So, first thing is to know that autism isn't universal for every single person. Not every person is affected by it the same. The second thing that I feel that employers that it's important for employers to understand is that when it comes to supporting autistic people in the workplace, you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel, and you don't have to kind of go to spend a lot of money, for example, or go to great measures to ensure that autistic people are supported in the workplace. I find that employers, if they find out that that somebody is autistic in an interview, that it can count against that, because they feel as though they have to support that person rigorously. Well, what I've learned with the Autism Directory is that with a lot of understanding, the Autism Directory, they've been very, very understanding of how autism can affect a huge variety of people, and they realize that that you don't that basic human understanding goes a very, very long way to helping autistic people be comfortable within their workplace. I've worked for the directory for nearly 3 years, and I have to say that so they've understood how my anxiety works and how what hurdles I can face within the job, but they've also recognized what is great about how my mind works, and I have a lot of creativity within my job, which is very which just comes from basic understanding of how autism can affect people. So following on from this second aspect of how employers, I would like to add to that your understanding of autism, it comes from the people, I think, and how people interact day to day. I know there's a lot written about how autism is a disability, but essentially, I think that you learn about autism by learning about people. And the final aspect that I would like to talk about in relation to autism and employment is that there could be a big variety of areas that people that autistic people can work in, and I find that I find that employment is always easier when you're working in an area where that you're passionate about. My passions, I'm very passionate about raising awareness and understanding of autism, and in that sense, the Autism Directory's YouTube channel, their Facebook, their Twitter channels, they're very, very good ways in which you can learn more about autism and how autistic people tackle the obstacles of life. So I think that if you're an autistic person searching for employment, make sure you choose an area that you're passionate about and that you know a lot about. The more you know, the more it can help you. Before this job with the Autism Directory, I worked as a claims handler in Admiral, and it was a very, very difficult job because car insurance wasn't something that I knew a lot about, and to communicate about that under pressure was a very difficult thing. I'm now working. I've got a master's in autism from Swansea University, and I'm now working in an environment where I feel that I can enact positive change. And I'd just like to say thank you ever so much for listening to this podcast today. And if anybody has any questions, please subscribe and follow the Autism Directory on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also look us up, the Autism Directory on YouTube, and have a really, really lovely day, guys. Thank you ever so much for listening in on my podcast today. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm really excited to be here and a part of this event with you all. Please do introduce yourselves in the chat box if you can. Firstly, I'll introduce myself. My name's Lucy Warnes. I work in a charity called Practical Action, although as I say that I will be leaving soon, hopefully to start a new job in the next coming weeks. So I wanted to talk about my experience. I've had experience recently with job hunting in a virtual world, and it's been a big learning curve for me. I found a lot of positives along the way, but also a lot of challenges. I'm a really experienced user of DWP's Access to Work scheme. So the company here have asked me to come and talk about this topic of access to work, how it all works, and how to dissolve any barriers that are out there at the moment. So as you can see me now, I'm a sign language user, I am deaf, and I use a BSL interpreter. I think lip reading when you're doing things online is really difficult. It's tiring for me. There's so many things that can possibly go wrong. For example, there's poor lighting, so you can't see somebody's face, a poor internet connection, or a time lag difference. So also we have live captioning, but sometimes that's not good enough, especially at the moment. I mean, we're quite reliant on it. And if a sound were to go in the meeting or there was no audio, you can imagine how difficult that could be. So I have found when I've been for interviews as well, I've always let the employer know that I've got access to work, I've got funding. They're always quite relieved to hear that they're not the ones who are responsible for funding and paying for the interpreters. And that means that dissolves one of the barriers straight away. So access to work, what is it? I don't know if you've heard of it before or if you use it yourselves. So yeah, do let me know in the chat box, I'd love to hear. So I'm aware that not enough people do use access to work currently. So I've got a few pieces of information that I will share with you today. So hopefully that can help resolve or dissolve any barriers and help you in work or getting a job. So I'll start with what is access to work exactly. Access to work is a government-funded employment support programme. So they really recognise that people either who are disabled and they've got, or long-term health conditions, they've got barriers in society. Those barriers can either be physical barriers, or they can be barriers created by people's attitude. So to be able to address these barriers and dissolve them, access to work provides a grant for people who are, like I said, disabled or have a long-term health condition. This means that they are able to stay in work or get a job, and this will include, as I said, interviews as well. So I'll give a few examples of what can be used in the funding. So support workers, so they can provide people like interpreters, note takers, drivers, for example, or also personal readers. You can also use their funding to get equipment or assistive technology. So this could be different screens. If somebody was visually impaired, for example, they need larger text or a larger screen, for example. Money can also be provided to cover expenses, so travel expenses. So if you need to travel to and from work or in work, if you're not able to use the bus or train or public transport. Also, they can provide disability awareness workshops, which can be really useful. So that's a few examples, and I'll give you a few tips from my own experience. So I would recommend that you apply now. Do it as soon as you can. The process can take a long time. It can be weeks long, especially with what's going on at the moment. I would say for interviews as well, they are able to, applications are turned around quite quickly for that. So that's helpful if you let them know. And then I would say also do let the employer know that if it's a charity, they're not able to contribute the cost themselves. So you need to let them know that so the employer is not responsible for anything. Do your own research as well. I would say you need to calculate your hours, how many hours of support that you will need, what equipment you will need, and get 3 different quotes as well from different companies or areas, depending on your needs. So, and I would also say, be prepared to do the work. You've got application forms to fill out. You've got commissioning, you've got claims, you've got budgeting that you need to do, working out your budget and negotiating with them, working with them every month. So if you do want to find out more information or you want to apply, you can do that online. So you need to go to the website, which is www.gov.uk, and then it's /access-to-work. I'm more than happy to talk with you all, answer any of your questions that you may have. If you want to contact me, I'm more than happy for you to do so. You can find me either on the social media network LinkedIn using just my name, or you can contact me via Twitter. My sort of Twitter handle or username is @Ms Rouge Noir. Thank you very much for listening.
Well, hi. So my name's Colin Daniels, and I have worked as an employment support worker of various different things in recruitment for many years within the sight loss sector. I started many years ago working for a charity which sadly no longer exists, called Action for Blind People, as an employment coordinator. I was unemployed for many years myself as somebody with sight loss. And struggled with finding a job, or actually pretty much knowing where to start. And ironically, and I always found this a bit ironic, my next job was actually to support other people with sight loss into work. So I was a trainee for a while and learned the sort of the ropes and the do's and don'ts of sight loss and the workplace, and how to apply for a job and find work for somebody with a disability. Now, obviously, my focus mainly is on sight loss because I live it every day. Just to say, I'm at home, obviously, because we're locked down, because that's what we're talking about. So if you hear anybody moving around, it's just my guide dog, Woody, having moving about. He's kind of asleep at the moment, but hopefully he'll be out of the way for most of this. So I wanted to focus today, really, because this is our point about how to apply for a job and what things that we should consider as people that work for disability organisations in recruitment through lockdown. Now, when I was asked very kindly to take part in this, I started considering what those blockages and what those barriers may be, and I felt actually that the barriers to employment as somebody with a disability, or from my standpoint from sight loss, haven't changed actually that much. The recruitment process itself is fraught with difficulties and inaccessibility and not being particularly user friendly for anybody with a disability. But focusing down onto the sort of the lockdown situation and where we're at now, and with the job sector as it is, which areas can we look at as organisations to improve how we can support people into work with disabilities, understand their disability and how it can affect them within the recruitment process? Now, I always felt that when I started, back with the Action for Blind People, that one of the biggest issues that people have is actually locating work. And then once they've located a job that they want to apply for, how to do that in a way that's effective and makes them stand out from the crowd without drawing too much on the emphasis that they actually have a disability. Disabilities in general stop and are a barrier to people getting work through fear of employer fear, rather, of, they think it's going to cost loads of money and all of that kind of stuff to take on someone with sight loss or disability. But actually, we know that that's a misnomer, and that actually, once you've taken on somebody with a disability, they're more likely to stay with you and be more loyal. So we need to try and find ways of selling ourselves and selling people with disabilities as actually a really good member of staff and a high productivity. Lockdown itself, of course, has made that the job market has suddenly swamped with thousands upon thousands of people. But there are plenty of jobs out there. But if we think about the disability sector, sorry, I nearly said sight loss sector then, because that's kind of where I work. The disability sector, we rely an awful lot on trusts, and money is coming in from different trusts and to lotteries and all sorts to fund employment and posts within our organisations. However, generally, if we're a disability organisation, we do have a wealth of skills and sort of knowledge of the disability and the disability that we're trying to support within our membership or our client base or our service users or whatever you choose to call these people that access your service. So my theory always has been that if you want to take on somebody and you're a sight loss organisation, dip into the pool of resources that you already have and those people that are accessing your services already. Social media is obviously a massive area where people now look for work. LinkedIn is a thing. I'm not going to lie, I don't really understand it myself. I do use it, but I get a bit confused by it. I think it's because of my age. I think that's what it is. But it took me about 3 years to work out what Twitter was. So, you know, LinkedIn is still a bit baffling. But those are the things that we need to consider. So social media, because that's where lots and lots of people look for work. The various job sites, places like Indeed and Reading Partnership, the Job Centre itself, all these areas, their websites are horrendous. They're difficult to use, they're clunky, and when you're like me and you use a screen reader, your focus is only on one part of the page at once. So you're only maybe identifying the job role, and then you have to find a button, and then you have to find another button, and then you have to read the job spec, and then all of this, and then by the time you found the button that you have to apply for, you need to refresh your screen, or you need to go make a cup of tea, or find something else to do. It's just laborious. So we, as organisations, if we're looking to get into our pool of people that we're already aware of and that we already know, we need to make our application process from the start, from actually advertising jobs, to become as simple as it can be. So this is about looking at your websites, making our websites as accessible as possible. Now, generally, we all try and adhere to all the general standards of websites, all of this kind of stuff. But the biggest thing that we all tend to forget to do is make them usable. We need to pop headings in places where headings need to be, I don't know, like at the top of the page. And this gives us an opportunity to actually, especially if you're using screen reading magnification or screen reading software or magnification. So after we've found a job on our websites, we've made our website really accessible, make the application process as simple as possible. We can use sort of online portals, but they tend to be quite inaccessible, long-winded, lots of tabbing around. That's even before we get to sort of an interview process. So we have to think about how we can interview people as well. So online these days, obviously, we have Zoom and Teams and Skype and all these Google Meet, anything that lots of people choose to use. So we need to consider what is the most accessible platform for our applicant. So maybe if they do use a screen reader, we can use Zoom, because that's a lot more accessible than Teams. On a laptop, because of the apps are a lot more effective. But it's about asking our applicants what they want, and then we're going to really choose and find the best people within our pool of members or users or service users who are going to be loyal to us and who are going to continue working for us for a great length of time. It costs a lot of money to employ somebody. We as organisations don't have much money anymore because of COVID. So if we can spend that money effectively, we are in a better place to retain our staff, deliver a service, and serve the people that we fundraise and want to support. Anyway, I'm very happy to have conversations or answer any questions. And I'm sure my contact details will be available to you guys. So if you want to talk to me at any time, please contact me by my various contact details, which will be available. I'm sure he says garbling on. Anyway, thanks very much for listening to me. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Scott Watking. I'm Head of Engagement at Seeability. And I'm here today to tell you a bit about my story and how Seeability has supported me in my role for me to get to where I am today. So I was born with a learning disability, and I was told that my mum and dad were told when I was first born that I would not live past the age of 25. And I had to fight for the first 6 months of my life, which was really important, which was really hard on my mum and dad. But I'm now 39, so I've beaten the odds already. I think and then I went to a special school, and I was bullied at school, but actually I didn't achieve my GCSEs. But I was always told by my teachers that I would never get a job, never live independently, and never have a family. And to this day, I've kicked all these barriers down. I mean, whilst you're at special school and you're a person with a learning disability, you're never given or asked what your aspirations are. And that is wrong, and you should be able to be asked what your aspirations are, but they've never ever asked me what those are. And I went to a college, and I did lots of courses to help me decide what I wanted to do. But actually what was really important is that I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I needed to decide. But I wanted to go and actually be a chef and do catering. So I applied for the course, but they wouldn't allow me to do the course because I dribble. And so massive discrimination there. So I went with my second choice and did horticulture. Like I said earlier, I didn't achieve the GCSEs I wanted to achieve, but what I did do in my horticultural work is I achieved getting a merit for my horticulture, and that's probably the first proper qualification I've ever had. But because of my visual impairment, which is keratoconus, and I was diagnosed that when I was 8 years old, I had to stop doing horticulture, and I was told that I needed to do something else. But I was on benefits and I really didn't know what else I was going to do, so I decided that I would volunteer in the day centre to help other people with learning disabilities and autism to be able to get a job, to be able to not get a job, but be able to achieve and learn the skills around horticulture. And that was really important. And I suppose that one of the things that really helped me to do is to get involved in local campaigning and join a local self-advocacy group to help other people with learning disabilities to have their voice heard. And I did that on the Isle of Wight, and then I helped make sure that the Learning Disability Partnership Board on the Isle of Wight was restructured, ready to go and to shape a new policy around it for valuing people now. But whilst I was doing that, I took the adult services director on the Isle of Wight to account, because they were making cuts to services to people with learning disabilities, and they said I'd only get 5 people into a consultation. In fact, I got 150 people there, and they said they'll never mess with Scott Watkin again. I mean, that was a big achievement. And then in 2009, I applied for the job of co-national director for learning disabilities and got that job, but I didn't know how to travel or to live independent, or I didn't know how to travel and to go across the to go across the country and use email and telephone. So I needed support with that. And one of the reasonable adjustments they did for me was to write the journeys down. And now I get my colleagues lost on the London Underground. And so, but essentially that job was around representing people with learning disabilities and making sure that they had a bigger voice throughout the country, and reporting it back to the ministers and telling them what for. But then I decided that in 2013 I needed a change, and I decided to go and work at Seeability. And at Seeability I became an eye care and vision development officer, talking about eye care and vision for people with learning disabilities. I'm not going to talk too much more about that because whilst I was at Seeability, they supported me to be able to achieve the things that I wanted to achieve in my role. They supported me to become a better leader now than I was. And they supported me to be able to lead a team of people and to hold a budget down. And I suppose one of the biggest things that happened to me whilst I was at Seeability was this promotion of head of engagement back in 2019, and given that opportunity to be able to achieve and lead a program and mentor 3 other people we support with lived experience to be able to help change things in our organization, but then do that externally and use social media and things, was a massive. And I now sit in our leadership team to make sure that people we support have a voice, not only within the organisation but externally. And so and I don't know that many people with learning disabilities who sit in their leadership team. But I suppose my final message for you guys is around fundraising. When we're talking about people with lived experience sharing their stories, you need to ask us to come and share our stories alongside you, and not for you to do it in isolation on your own, because it's more powerful when working together and doing it in that way. And because actually the person whose story it is can actually share that. And I think that's really important because actually that helps to make sure that funders fundraise and fundraise and give them the money to to organisations. So I think if anything you're going to take away is always take the person with lived experience alongside with you to be able to fundraise. But actually, if you're an employer and you want to employ more people with lived experience, make sure that you're allowing people with learning disabilities the opportunity to be employed and to help and support your organisations to be more inclusive. So if you get it right for people with learning disabilities, you get it right for everybody. Thank you.